Well.
Anyway. Okay.
In my neck of the woods, it's the same.
Okay.
Good. How are you?
Oh, yeah.
Pronunciation, depending on where you are.
Hey, how are you? I really like Holly. So now she made all of us. She came Monday to interview with Jared, and
The drive was a little bit more than I thought it was.
And she stayed. It wasn't hard. And she had a
hotel.
Yeah,
it's
we were all just.
This is a home game for you, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I can't say.
How many are we expecting? You drive in this morning or
I came in yesterday.
is that the same for the
Main drive from
too?
Hammond. I
Or
never know what traffic.
Anyway, she was.
where you live, Homer?
Hammond.
Hammond.
Yep.
I kind of told her, I said, this may not be the best time. So,
I don't know if these things are hot or not.
she wanted to come because we
So I said, it might be.
It is.
Hey, good morning. How you doing? Good.
We need to you. Did we have a
Try to get a Wi-Fi here.
I know Brad.
really?
Yeah.
The traffic, sir. I was in the neighborhood.
Research
Appreciate
creativity. Just make sure that I like that.
I drove in last night. I did. How about you?
I did.
Sure will.
Yeah.
Didn't get away as early as I
You
thought.
stayed at your place or?
No,
We stayed at the Marriott.
Yeah.
No, our place is still
I didn't know if it was.
under
Network is
construction.
a long guess. And
I
you
passed by some that had roof tarps over all the roofs in the condo. They just told us recently they could replace all of it. So I think some of them had damage, but they're replacing all. So but they're still painting and installing and stuff.
My daughter's house is still.
I put in a statement in our policy statement says we're doing
Insurance approval.
okay.
And they fixed the external roof.
We're not
Yeah. I mean, I guess I hear about the repairs going on in the condo. I don't really hear about everybody. It just seems like
It was on April 9th. We did the honeymoon and
the whole condo association are doing everything. It's like single households.
Oh, yeah.
go in and fix it.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I mean, we had so many different insurance come back and say, well, they're not going to approve.
So your wedding was in New Orleans,
Well, they
right?
are going to approve it.
Cleo came by our house.
They look at it as
Oh, did he?
But
I was so happy he was able to make it. I was like, he's not going to
But I just think it's not our problem. Because for some people, it is their
I'd say it's
home, that's
really
where they live, and they've been displaced now since.
like the biggest
Population.
So this is actually my first one. They're open. This is my first one in person. They were in. Oh yeah, you know, came in.
Hi.
Well, it's just amazing.
Joe, nice to meet you.
Had everything planned.
Nice to meet you.
But I drove down and
Okay.
my daughters.
You can say Joe Leatherman. Yes, you can use my new last name. Yeah.
I'm in
I
good
think
shape.
Okay.
Yeah, good. How are you? Carol, do we have a Wi-Fi? Good.
How are you doing? Good. Good to see you.
We're virtual.
Pin's not working.
I had to go to the front desk and get a map of the campus. I was like, I can't find it. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. And see, this is my first meeting, so I was just kind of like, and then I started seeing the little signs y'all put out, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yes, I said get on the right. Yeah, Al just. No. I had my, no, but I didn't even realize it was one.
Yeah, you know what the password
Blanco?
Okay, like walk around that way.
You guys ready?
That's what.
Good morning. I now call to order today's meeting of the Board of Supervisors for the University of Louisiana System. Ms. Carroll, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Barry Busada, Dr. Jimmy Clark,
Here.
Dr. John Condos, Mr. Steve Davison,
Here.
Ms. Lola Donahoe,
Present.
Ms. Joe Leatherman,
Present.
Mr. Al Perkins, Mr. Dana Peterson,
Present.
Elizabeth Pierre,
Present.
Mr. Virgil Robinson, Mr. Mark Romero,
Here.
Ms. Christine Russell, Mr. Joseph, Mr. Brad Stevens,
Here.
Ms. Julie Stokes,
Present.
Ms. L'Oreal Williams.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. At this time, Ms. Donahoe, would you please lead us in an invocation as we begin our meeting?
If you will stand and bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the many blessings you've bestowed on all of us here today. Please grant us the wisdom to conduct the business of this board as we seek to serve the people of our state, especially the students, faculty, and staff of our 9 great universities. Guide us in all that we do, that we be a conduit of your love to others. Through Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Donahoe. Before we continue, may I have a motion and a second to dispense with committee deliberations and to meet as a whole?
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we dispense with deliberations and meet as a whole. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Also, I would like to advise that if any member of the audience would like to make a public comment on an agenda item, please use the comment cards located on the table and give it to the staff member. Also, we need a motion to add one item to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. May I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved. Is there any discussion?
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you. That motion carries. At this time, we are very excited and appreciative to be on the campus of the University of New Orleans today. And Dr. Nicholls, do you have a few words for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, President Henderson. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on our campus, our beautiful lakefront campus, and arguably the greatest city on the planet. I might be a little biased, but I truly believe that. I just wanted to briefly share a video short video that I often share with business leaders around the city, also using it to attract new businesses. A little bit about who we are and what we do. Enjoy.
New Orleans is the only public research university in Greater New Orleans. Founded more than 60 years ago on the twin pillars of educational access and excellence, the institution remains one of the city's most important public assets. Offering bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, it blends rigorous academic preparation with a supportive, student-focused environment. Some of its most well-known programs guarantee an only in New Orleans education in areas such as hotel, restaurant, and tourism administration, naval architecture and marine engineering, planning and urban studies, environmental sciences, and the arts. UNO has the only civil, electrical, and mechanical engineering programs in the city. It has produced more educational personnel in the metro area than any other institution, and it offers the state's only doctoral program in justice. The university has educated students from all 64 Louisiana parishes, all 50 states, and more than 140 countries. It is the most ethnically diverse university in the state of Louisiana. It ranks among the national universities whose students graduate with the least average debt, and it's one of the best in the nation in upward social mobility, both according to U.S. News and World Report. UNO students are engaged both on campus and in their city with internships, student organizations, clubs and affinity groups, and through concerts, lectures, exhibits, and sporting events, including cheering on the privateers who participate in NCAA Division I athletics. The University of New Orleans drives major economic momentum in the region. The university and the adjacent UNO Research and Technology Park combine to generate nearly $1 billion in annual economic activity. A key component of that activity is the number and influence of alumni. There are more than 47,000 in Metro New Orleans alone. As a community asset, UNO forges partnerships with local employers. For example, UNO helped land DXE Technology, a global IT company that's bringing thousands of high-paying jobs to its New Orleans Digital Transformation Center. The University of New Orleans, where next is now.
I hope you enjoyed that. And with that, I hope you enjoy your time here. Certainly let us know if we can do anything, if you need anything, if we can make your time here a little more comfortable. And I look forward to seeing you all this evening at my house for a little bit of respite, I guess. All right. Thank you. And back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Nicholls. Thank you again for your hospitality and a wonderful video. I love that. Okay, moving along, today is her first meeting, and we welcome our member, Mrs. Jo Leatherman, who was just married within the last 2 weeks. She was appointed by the governor to serve as an at-large member of this board. Brendan DeQueer, would you please administer the oath of office to her at this time?
I'm looking for you. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joe Leatherman, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of this state, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent on me as a member of the Board of Supervisors according to the best of my ability and understanding, so help me God. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Joe. At this time, would you like to make some comments?
I'd just like to say hello, everybody. Good to see all these beautiful faces in the room. I am so extremely excited to be a part of the Board of Supervisors, and I look forward to the work that we're going to be doing together. So thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. Just for your information, I have appointed Mrs. Leatherman to the Athletic and Student Affairs Committee, Grievance, Legislation, and Personnel. We are looking forward to working with you. At this time, may I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of our February board meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Donahoe,
Second. Davidson.
second by Mr. Davidson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Again, we are meeting as a committee of the whole, and everyone can vote on all items. Each committee chair will conduct the business of that particular committee. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll start with academic affairs. Dr. Clark, would you please address the items under academic and student affairs?
I will do so. I believe that we now have 7 items on the Academic and Student Affairs Committee agenda. All these items require approval. So Dr. Janine Kahn, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, is going to provide the report. So Dr. Kahn.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Clark. Good morning to you, Chair Pierre, President Henderson, and members of the board. It's good to see everybody on this beautiful day here in the University of New Orleans campus. We do have 7 items. One item was added, which is agenda item F1, which is a request from Grambling State University to award an honorary doctorate of humane letters to Mr. Edward Ted James in recognition of his service to Louisiana as a state representative, as well as his recent appointment by President Biden to serve as the U.S. Small Business Administration's Regional Administrator for Region 6 South Central Region. F2 is also a request from Grambling State University to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the University of Belize. I will be going next month to Belize to make sure everything is copacetic. So if you'd like to join me, please email me after the meeting. Exactly. So the more the merrier. We need to make sure Grambling is doing what they should be doing. But this is a proposed partnership that will help the University of Belize students matriculate to graduate programs in the education arena that are 100% online delivery. Agenda items F3 and F4 pertain to McNeese State University. F3 is a request to award an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters to Mr. Dennis Stein. The university would like to recognize their alumnus for his substantial business achievements as well as for his service to this community and the support he has provided to McNeese. F4 is a request for approval to offer a Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. The university currently offers an MS in psychology with a concentration in counseling psychology. This program is not able to be accredited by the Council for Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs, which limits employment opportunities for its graduates as well as hinders recruitment of new students into the program. This trend will continue because the accrediting body will now require those that are they have to graduate from a K-credit accredited program, and so that will again limit recruitment opportunities for new students. The university basically would like to restructure the existing MA program in order to produce competent entry-level master's prepared counselors, as well as increase the number of licensed professional counselors in the Southwest Louisiana region and the state of Louisiana. And we all know how the crisis in mental health illness has exacerbated, especially since the pandemic. So we will be producing far more greater professionals that will help meet the needs of individuals. Agenda item F5 is a request from Northwestern State University to award an honorary doctorate of humanities to Miss Leela Mae Wilkes for her business acumen as well as her long-standing public and community service and philanthropic contributions that have benefited the university greatly. Agenda item F6 is a request from Southeastern Louisiana University. You can tell it's getting commencement time. One more honorary doctorate of humanities, to Mr. John A. Alario Jr. The university would like to recognize Senator Alario for his 49 years of gracious public service to the state of Louisiana. And the last item, agenda item F7, is a request from the University of Louisiana Monroe to establish the Institute of Gerontology Education, Research, and Training. Gerontology has been a very strong area of focus for ULM for many years, and it offers Louisiana's only graduate program in this area of study. The university would like to expand its reach by promoting workforce development in the gerontology industry and enhance the quality of life of a rapidly expanding older population through transformative education, outreach, service learning, and research activities. And of course, as I get a little older, this becomes a little cheap. And Supervisor Clark, that concludes my introduction of the 7 agenda items.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. And certainly, if there are questions from any members, please feel free to ask Dr. Khan anything. I have one,
yes.
And that is the use of the term institute, yes, on the final one. How does that? Can you explain how that works?
Basically, you have a research institute or a center. So when you have a research institute like this one, obviously there's research that's conducted, and it serves as an umbrella of sorts for a university to do various functions in an area. In this particular area, gerontology, you have research that's conducted to contribute to the academic component of that, but then there's also community service, non-credit courses that will be offered to professionals in this area, also programming for elderly people and individuals that have disabilities as well. And so it brings all of those and harnesses all those areas under one umbrella, so it's focused, providing various service and research, community service, and outreach. Is that helpful?
Yeah, explain then center. You said instead of center, how does
the center usually is not as focused as an institute on research? Okay. And that's the big distinction between the two. And so, that is something that requires Board of Regents approval that will move forward to that next area. And so you've seen over time, the main distinction is between the research function. Center, not normally, but an institute, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Clark?
Yes.
I have a question. Dr. Khan, on item F4, did you say this new program would not be accredited as well?
It would, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
good.
First, I wanted to find out, like, apparently we're handing out honorary doctorates and to former legislators, so I was just wondering. No, that was a joke.
I was gonna say,
So good, isn't it?
you want 9 of them? You want all 9 to honor you? Is that-
Please, I mean, throw me something.
You let me know what you'd like. Supervisor Stokes will take care of it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I was also.
Honorary doctors can't write prescriptions, right?
Right.
And that's a different kind of doctor. And we don't have one of those schools, I don't think. But anyway, on the Masters of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, so the normal path that this would be an MED.
It would be a Master of Science in Clinical,
So
an MS.
And so I'm a little confused as to why this can't fit. Like, I know, like my husband, for instance, has a PhD in counseling, but it's like from here, and it's in the education department. So where does this come out of?
Well, what they'll have an area of focus for school counseling. And then this will be a focus in private therapy counseling. So this new proposed program will be for individuals that will go into private practice or work for hospitals. And so one-on-one therapy. And in this particular situation, the area of focus for McNeese is on addiction and counseling, trauma-informed counseling, and crisis intervention. And so they'll be working with the graduates of the program will be working with those individuals that are coping with those personal issues.
So what college is it going to be in?
It is going to be in the College of Education.
So it's going to be in
Yes,
education.
yes, but it will be not the MED like you referenced.
Right.
It's going to be a Master of Science. And so the curriculum is a little different when you talk about an MED because you'll have more education courses. This is a Master of Science where you'll have a core curriculum of 44 credit hours and then the 16 hours. Then you'll have core concentration of those addiction studies, trauma intervention, and whatnot. So you can get industry.
And so then they would sit for the same board
Yes.
exam.
And then when they graduate, they'll go ahead and have to do
LCP.
supervised clinical hours of sorts, and then
Yeah.
go ahead and sit for licensure. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how widely spread is this particular degree?
We have all of our institutions here in the UL system have various counseling programs.
Right.
And so again, it's those area of specializations that differ. And then of course it's a wide variety. LSU, Southern also offer master degree programs in these areas. And again, it's that counseling focus and some might be on family and therapy. Some might be on the trauma and addiction. And so that's how they kind of, individualize their programs.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Dr. Khan, then clarification then, so is McNeese the only one in our system that
Right.
will then have the clinical mental health counseling?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
Well, and how widely spread is that particular degree, like in general throughout the country?
I don't know the answer to that
Yeah.
question, to be quite honest. As you look at, there's so many nuances when it comes to, as obviously you personally know. And so this is an area that just has become so needed because there aren't enough therapists and counselors, because you can be in social work as well and provide therapy. But the need is so great, especially in the southeastern portion where McNeese is located with all of the challenges, that this will be very helpful to them because of the addiction studies, because there's been an increase in drug addiction in that area. And so this is why the university focused on that area in particular. And they would be the only ones that would be focusing in the state of Louisiana.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions, clarifications that people want?
I'll move to approve.
All right. Do we have a second to approve the 7 items on the academic affairs?
Second.
Second?
Yes.
Okay, we have a move by Supervisor Romero, a second by Supervisor Robinson. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Is there any further business to come to the committee at this time? All right, I turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Clark. At this time, Mr. Romero will address the items under the Athletic Committee.
Thank you, Chair Pierre. This morning, we'll call to order the Athletic Committee and have 16 items on the agenda today. all are consent items, and Mr. Bruchene will provide a brief overview of each of the items for us to consider.
Thank you very much, Mr. Romero and Board of Supervisors and Dr. Henderson. The campuses are requesting approval of the following contract amendments as follows. Items G1 to G2 from Northwestern State. A new contract with Corey Gibson, head men's basketball coach, and contractual amendments with Anna Nims, head women's basketball coach. Items G3 through G13 are from Southeastern, requesting approval of a contract with William Naro, head golf coach, Benjamin Gibson, associate men's baseball coach, Kenneth Lee, associate women's basketball coach, Antonio Baker, assistant football coach, Andrew Hopp, assistant football coach, Ross Jenkins, assistant football coach, Delphine Lee, another assistant football coach, Albert Poirier, assistant football coach, Thomas Rinaldi, assistant football coach, Anthony Selfo, assistant football coach, and finally, Greg Stevens, assistant football coach, offensive coordinator. And then the last items are from University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Items G14 to G16, requesting approval of contracts with Christopher McBride, head soccer coach, Michael Giuliano, assistant football coach and outside linebackers, and Dennis Thomas, assistant football coach and offensive coordinator, as well as receivers coach. And those are the items I have, Mr. Romero. And at this time, if you will allow, President Jones would like to introduce his new basketball coach. Minutes. President Jones.
Madam Chair, Dr. Henderson, board members, it is my pleasure to welcome Corey Gibson to the NSU family. Corey has over 20 years of experience in coaching and playing on the collegiate level. He has been at Missouri State and the top recruiter for the past 7 years. He has his wife, April. They have 3 children, Jordan, Tanner, and Frankie. And from what I understand, Frankie is the head of the household. He's 2 years old. He runs everything. So it is a pleasure to have Corey as part of the NSU team. He is an exciting addition and has already made some great changes. So I'd like to welcome Corey to NSU.
First of all, it's a pleasure being here, and thank you, Ms. Donahue, for that beautiful invocation. It's also a breath of fresh air to see that I was the first one on the athletic. It might be a good omen that we're number one on that right there. And very seldom do I see Gibson with a GIP in Southeastern Louisiana University. They have another GIP instead of a GIB. So a lot of good omens in here today. So that makes me feel good. But I'm very humbled to be here. My family and I, we're in a very blessed situation. And the reason for saying that is that when you have an opportunity to be a part of administration where you have, Dr. Jones, who you see, running around campus with a T-shirt on. I actually went to a segment the other day where we had Special Olympics going on. And, as coaches, we're always looking for recruits. And I see this guy walked up, he's hulked up, and he had a T-shirt on, and it was Dr. Jones. And I said, boy, I'm at the right place. But he said, hey, Gip, how you doing? And so, that's just a sign, the fact that he's always around campus, he's always present, and just his energy and his effort and enthusiasm just bleeds into that university and that community. When he gets on the microphone, because he's just so energetic. And so my family and I, we're blessed to be a part of administration like that. That's very hands-on. That's so energetic. And Natchitoches is not a sale. When you integrate yourself into it. So we're very blessed to be integrated into the Northwestern State University family and integrated into that community. So thank you so much.
Include my items.
Thank you, Mr.
Romero.
Smith. And again, welcome, Mr. Gibson. Glad to see you at Northwestern. These agenda items have been reviewed by staff and recommended for approval. Of course, if anyone has a question, you're certainly welcome to ask it at this time. If we have any questions or comments from the board at this time? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, if no one requires any further clarification on the consent agenda items, may I have a second for approval of items G1 to 16?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Moved.
Second.
Second. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Do we have any other business to come before the committee this time, Bruce?
No, sir.
That concludes the business of the athletic committee, and I'll refer to Mr. Pierre.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Romero. At this time, since Chair Busada is not able to attend today, Ms. Stevens, the vice chair of this committee, will address the items under facilities planning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, we have 7 items on the Facilities Planning Committee. They're all consent agenda items. Mr. Bruce Jenner will provide a brief overview and will do so by campus.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stevens. Campuses are requesting approval of the following. The first item is H1 from Nicholls to name the newly renovated Room 105 in Elder Memorial Library, the Marie Falgoose Faculty Staff Club. Mrs. Falgoose has been a supporter of Nicholls for many years. She has assisted Nicholls in several capital outlay and renovation projects with her expertise for interior design. The dedication of this space to Ms. Falgoose is a fitting tribute for her dedicated support and the service that she has provided to the university. Item H2 is from Northwestern State. Name an area in the A. Fredericks Fine Arts Building Theater Dance Scene Shop, the Phil Kidd Scene Shop, in honor of the late Phil Kidd, a former NSU faculty member. Professor Kidd began his career at Northwestern as a shop foreman for the campus in the theater and dance program. He designed sets for more than 30 theater and dance productions and was technical director for numerous programs and productions over the years. He was an extraordinary teacher and mentor, and many of his graduates have become professionals in the world of technical theater and design. Others pursue careers in teaching and are often inspired by many lessons that Professor Kidd taught them. Again, he was and staff member at Northwestern who served in the United States Navy during the Vietnam War. Item H3 from Southeastern, requesting approval to amend its 5-year capital outlay submission to include a project to construct a new nursing and health science building. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated an already significant workforce shortage, creating an urgent need to expand the number of graduates in key healthcare related fields. The project is expected to be approximately 72,000 square feet. It will consist of classrooms, class labs, simulation labs, clinical space, along with departmental and faculty offices, and will be located on the main campus in Hammond. The necessary forms have been prepared and sent to Facility Planning and Control, and it's treated as a late submission. The estimated cost of this project is approximately $31,913,000. Item H4 is from University of Louisiana Lafayette, requesting approval to name the campus plaza near Griffin Hall after longtime Assistant Dean of Liberal Arts Carolyn Durall, and name it the Carolyn Durall Plaza. She was an alumna and former staff member of the College of Liberal Arts, where she served as Assistant Dean for the college since 2009 until her untimely death in 2019. She earned her BA in sociology in 1980 and her MA in French in 1991, both at UL Lafayette. She was a French instructor from 1995 to 1998 until becoming assistant to the dean. Throughout her 25 years, Mrs. Duvall became known as one who solved many problems and clarified issues and meet detailed policy in its history. Item H5 is also from University of Lafayette, requesting approval to name certain things in athletics as follows: Gate A at Cajun Field would be known as the David and Karen Daniel Family Gate A. Parking Lot B at Cajun Field, Blake and Jenny Burke Parking. Lot B. Parking Lot D at Cajun Field, Terry DeHome. Lot D. The Raging Cajuns Athletic Foundation Office Suite would be named Noah G. Brandon RCAF Office Suite. Victory Bell Tower at Cajun Field. At Cajun Field's West Concourse for First Horizon Bank, known as First Horizon Athletics Administration Offices. The club level at Cajun Field would be named Mac Elliott Club at Cajun Field. They want to name the soccer and track facility the Home Bank Soccer and Track Facility. And finally, the assistant coaches recruiting office at the Donald and Janice Bosing Student Center would be have a name of donated by Louis Bear in loving memory of Donna Alsing. And in your packet that was sent to you, Dr. Savoy has provided detailed justification for each of the 9 naming requests. Item 8.6 is from the University of Louisiana at Monroe, requesting approval to accept a donation of the synthetic turf field that has been installed on the baseball field service from the University of Louisiana Monroe Facilities, Inc. The turf was provided through a contribution from the Convention and Visitor Center Bureau, as well as private donations, and the university incurred no debt based on this donation. The turf is valued at approximately $1,300,000. And finally, the last item, and we're at University of New Orleans, item 8.7, to name the limited area of green space and adjacent patio under the front entrance of the Earl K. Long Library, the Virginia Roseanne Amato patio. This naming is requested in memory of the late Virginia Roseanne Amato and in recognition of the significant economic, financial, and charitable contributions of her parents, John and Virginia Amato, to the state of Louisiana, the city of New Orleans, as well as the University of New Orleans.
Thank you, Mr. John A. Members, as mentioned earlier, all of these items are agenda items. Consent items. They've been reviewed by board and legal staff and are recommended for approval. If there are any questions, please let me know now. Yes, Mr. Clark.
I'm certainly supportive of the notion of naming rights and so on. I noticed that most of these are pledges, meaning that the money has not been secured. What happens when we approve a name and then the pledge does not materialize? Is there an automatic reversal? Is there a procedure that takes place? How does that go?
I don't think that's happened yet, but I'm sure that Dr. Savoy would come about that if somebody makes a pledge and they don't, if something would happen to them, or if something would be that would not be good for the university, that they would get in trouble, it would be recalled. So, but I don't know that's happened yet, but I'm sure Dr. Savoy or other presidents would do that if they don't meet it, because that's what it was based on, making certain pledges. So
we don't, as a system, have a policy relative to that as an expected. I mean, there's things in here that speak towards, a naming period for 10 years. I mean, there's some specificity that is included. It would seem to me that we should have some, understanding that if someone is going to, pledge dollars, that they are, banked at a certain time for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah, Supervisor Clark, all those terms are spelled out in the donation agreement. When we receive a donation that goes to a naming of a facility or a room or anything like that, then that's spelled out in the donor agreement.
So it's an individual circumstance and not a generalized policy.
Exactly. But we could look at ensuring that is borne out in our policy as well. I think that's a great suggestion.
Right, because we have a board rule and we could amend it, to have that caveat. So that's a very good suggestion. So, thank you.
Members, any other questions, concerns, or any comments from the public? If no one requires further clarification of agenda items, may I have a motion and a second for approval of items H1 to H7?
So moved.
Mr. Romero makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Davison seconds that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Do we have any other business at this time, Mr. Janay?
No, sir, Mr. Stevens.
If not, that concludes the business of Facilities Planning Committee, and the next committee is Finance.
Okay, thank you. Chair Robinson will address the items on the Finance Committee.
Thank you very much. Good morning. We have 9 items on the Finance Committee agenda, 7 of which are consent items. 2 are discussion items, which we will take at the end of the presentation of the consent items. Mr. Mish and Ms. McIntyre will provide a brief overview of the consent.
LEQSF 8G endowed professorships and endowed scholarship donations of $80,000 to qualify for a $20,000 Board of Regents matching funds, and request approval to establish 4 endowments A through D on the executive summary. In addition, the Grambling University Foundations received a minimum private donations of $60,000 to qualify for $40,000 Board of Regents matching funds, and request approval to establish 9 endowments which were created to 2016. Those are items E through M. Universities submit their endowments to the Board of Regents Logan system in priority order, so endowments are with highest priority are funded first. I2 is Nicholls State University's request for approval for the execution of supplemental leases between the board on behalf of the university and UNSU Facilities Corporation in connection with refunding or remarketing of all or operation, finance the construction of student housing facilities and other campus improvements. The project was financed through issuance of 2 series of revenue bonds by the Louisiana Community Development Authority, LCDA, in 2007. The Series 2000A bonds were swapped to hedge interest rate exposure. A bonds were refinanced in 2017 through the issuance of fixed rate refunding bonds by the LCDA, and the Series 2007 structured and continue to bear interest at a rate swap to hedge interest rate exposure. Under the terms of the swap and transaction documents, the LCDA currently pays a fixed rate of 5.6%. The university, through NFSU Facilities Corporation, proposes to use proceeds of tax-exempt refunding bonds issued through the LCDA funds to refund all or a portion of the B bonds, and to pay a swap termination payment associated with the Series 2007 B bonds. In connection with the restructuring and refunding, the university is expecting the leases related to the Series B bonds to be supplemented and amended to refer to the terms of the refunding bonds and the new terms of any Series 2007 B bonds that remain outstanding. The total principal amount of the refunding bonds will not exceed $42,500,000, which together with other available funds will be sufficient to pay the costs associated with retiring or restructuring of the Series 2007 B bonds, paying a termination payment on all or a portion of the swap and the cost of issuance of the refunding bonds. The net interest cost of the refunding bonds is expected to be a fixed rate of approximately 3.75%. Annual debt service for the proposed refunding bonds will be secured and payable from lease payments from the board on behalf of the university to the corporation, which will be derived from the rents collected by the university from the student housing facilities. The board and the university have not and will not pledge its full faith and credit or state appropriated funds to make any debt service payments on the bonds. Item I3 is Northwestern's request for approval to offer a new lower fee for its Master of Education and Postmaster's Education and Educational Leadership programs. The school districts need to expand administrative skills in development, cultural development, assessment literacy, progress monitoring, social and emotional learning for students, and mental health issues. To address school district needs and to increase enrollment and to make Northwestern more competitive with other providers, Northwestern requests approval to charge $280 per credit hour for its Master of Education and Postmaster Certificate in Educational Leadership programs. I-4 is University of Louisiana at Lafayette's request for approval to assess a student tuition rate of $416.66 per credit hour for its Master of Education and Educational Leadership program as allowed by Act 426 of the 2013 regular session. Act 426 of the 2013 regular session grants authority for the board to impose tuition and fees for students enrolled in an academic degree program offered entirely through distance education. University of Louisiana at Lafayette requests approval to assess students enrolled in its Master of Education and Educational Leadership online program a rate of $416 per graduate credit hour. The proposed rate is competitive with other distance education programs and are relative to the cost associated with providing distance education courses. I-5, University of Louisiana at Monroe's request for approval to charge a $150 application fee for its Doctor of Physical Therapy program. At its June 2018 meeting, the board approved University of Louisiana at Monroe's proposal for a Doctor of Physical Therapy program, and student enrollment in the program will begin in fall 2022. The university requests approval to charge a $150 application fee for students who apply to enter the program. I-6, University of New Orleans request for approval to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with Talaria Antibodies Incorporated for support in the preparation of proprietary custom polyclonal antibodies. Talaria Antibodies is a Louisiana biotech startup company that produces customized antibodies, and the university's Advanced Materials Research Institute, AMRI, is a recognized world leader in nanomaterials research. Talaria Antibodies will provide support for AMRI researchers in preparation of proprietary custom polyclonal antibodies. Talaria Antibodies will occupy space in UNO Science Building and will pay UNO monthly rent of approximately $2,079. The immediate proximity of Talaria Antibodies will readily allow for the exchange of ideas, the production of new materials developed by AMRI researchers, the training of undergraduate and graduate students in antibody production, and the development of state and federal research proposals in basic and applied research. This cooperative endeavor agreement will begin May 1, 2022 and terminate on April 30th, 2023. The agreement may be extended for additional periods by mutual agreement of the parties.
Item I-7 is the system's recommendation for campus housing and meal plan rates, auxiliary rates, energy surcharges, and non-governmental charges for academic year 23. Annually, each institution has to submit their request for approval for these different rates, and they are subject to board approval. The housing, meal plan, and auxiliary requests are comparable to the most current consumer price index, which increased by 8.5% over the last 12 months, with the exception of a few rate requests that have not been adjusted in the last few years. These rates are generally subject to contractual arrangements with vendors. Additionally, all energy surcharge requests have been supported by calculations submitted by the institutions and are all within the maximum allowed per policy.
This completes the consent items, Mr. Rollins.
Thank you. The consent agenda items I-1 through I-7 have been reviewed by board staff and are recommended for approval. Of course, if there are any questions or any member wishes to discuss an item, please let me know at this point.
I do have a question.
Donnell?
Yes, under item 4, the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, is this an existing program or is this a new program that they're initiating? And if it is an existing program, what was the prior rate?
I looked at the prior rate, the normal rate for the average student, and it's slightly below that rate. Now, whether it's a new program, I'm not sure. I would have to.
This is a longstanding program that they had. It's offered exclusively online, which is what gives them the authority under that act to change the tuition rate. But this program has been in place for many years.
So what was the rate prior to this request?
I don't know the exact rate, but it was approximately a little over, like over $400 per credit hour, but more than 416.
I'll find out for you.
I can easily get that.
Okay.
for you.
Thank you for that information.
Are there other questions? Yes.
I have just a couple of questions on this. I'm curious, on item I3 or 1.3, I'm intrigued because it says make Northwestern more competitive with other providers. Who are the other providers that we're comparing them to?
Other competing universities, they listed a few of those. I don't recall which ones they were.
Are any of them ours?
No,
Are we?
no.
So these are all
They were not.
external?
They were outside, yes, sir.
Okay, and is this program considered, I mean, it's a master's certificate in educational leadership, and the UL Lafayette one is Master in Educational Leadership, and there's, I mean, significant difference between one, I guess, is an in-person or is on campus and maintains that. Is that the thought there? And that it's
I think this was essentially a contract rate with discussions of those school boards that needed some additional staff, training, and Northwestern compared to other universities, their competitors, and they felt that they needed to decrease that rate to be competitive.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm all about decreasing rates, so I think that's fine. I find the calculation of the rate, $416.66, interesting and intriguing. Just curious as to how those are calculated at some point in time.
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
Kim McAllister, Dean from the College of Education and Human Development at Northwestern. The rate of 280 credit hour that Northwestern did was in alignment with a previous flat rate that was approved by this body 2 years ago for alternate certification. So when our business affairs office was running rates on how to make this cost effective and profitable for our university, we tried to keep them in alignment both for advertising to school districts, so you can have non-certified teachers become certified at this rate, as well as take aspiring leaders and do that at that same rate. We did that looking at our primary competition in the Shreveport-Bossier area is a school outside of the UL system, as well as a for-profit provider that is steadily encroaching upon our certification and leadership in the north central portion of our state.
Who's the for-profit operator?
I Teach is the program that seems to heavily be recruiting and offering incentives for our folks.
Thank you very much. Very, very, very helpful. The increased cost for the online program, I know it's authorized and the legislature says that you can do it. Do we have any cost studies or anything that shows that it's more expensive to offer online than it is to offer in person? Is there a rationale that creates that opportunity?
I don't have that information, Dr. Clark, but we could look into it.
And I say that in a general sense, not just that program. I'm just curious. I mean, it's always.
Of course, Dr. Clark, it depends on the nature of the program. A lot of folks think that offering online is inherently cheaper, and as we all know, it's really not. Certainly, you've got technology expenses, you've got professional development expenses, and so that was always a misnomer. If you remember when we started offering the massively open online courses, we could take a class from Stanford with 95,000 of your closest friends, right? And 50 of you would graduate or finish the program, but they realized that really wasn't a workable business model either. So a lot of times these programs are priced more to be competitive with proprietary and for-profit institutions that offer courses in similar areas. And don't want to go through and name them, but that has become a very competitive sphere. So they price them, one, to cover the cost of the program, but two, to attract students. This is a program, I believe, from UL Lafayette that's offered in connection with academic partnerships. And that model is one where they do a lot of the marketing, a lot of the intake of students, and for an exchange of about 50% of the tuition rate. So it's one of these market focused rather than in-state mission-focused programs, if you will, if that's a fair differentiation.
My final question is on item 1.5, that $150 application fee for the doctor of physical therapy. Is there a comparison to other doctoral program application fees? Is there a reason for that specific dollar? It seems high to me. I don't know anything about it. I've never applied for.
So how it would compare to other programs of this type, I'm not sure. $150 for a professional program just seemed reasonable.
It's in line with other programs. In fact, their whole pricing model for the DPT program has to be aligned with similar DPT programs in SREB. Unfortunately, we don't have the authority to set the tuition rate for that program yet. That has to come through the legislature. So what they're able to do is set the application fee in alignment with other SREB DPT programs.
Do we have the authority to grant and allow for waiver of that application fee if there are? So I'm again just conscious of application fees sometimes being inhibitors for populations that cannot afford, and I would hate to think that we are pricing out certain populations to even apply for consideration.
Yes, sir.
It's certainly in line with professional program application fees across our system in the southern region.
I just have one question also. Since we have a lot of these questions, perhaps maybe we could ask the universities when they prepare these requests to include a comparison of the regional, other competitors and so forth and so on, whether it's a university or, as Dr. McAllister mentioned, a private for-profit thing. If we could have those comparisons with this, I think this would better help us to understand what's appropriate as far as these increases. And I think the one at Northwestern was actually a decrease. Is that correct?
Oh, it's substantial.
And is this also, the one at Northwestern, is it strictly online or? Okay.
It is an online program, although we are collaborating with area superintendents to increase some face-to-face support because we're trying to build that district cohort with each area.
Supervisor Donahoe, what we will begin doing is every time we have a request to increase, it'll have a existing increasing to the proposed rate. And then it'll also include that other material if it's to be competitive with proprietary training providers. In what way? If it's something related to in-state and kind of our core mission, it'll say, why are we doing it this way and how does it compare to others? I think that's very fair. We'll provide that information.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any questions or comments from the public? We've kind of taken the show for a while. Recognizing none, can I have a motion to approve item 1 through 17, please?
So moved.
Mr. Romero,
Second.
Dr. Clark, second. Are there any objections? Without objections, those items are approved. We will now move to item 1.8 and 1.9. Mr. Mish and Mr. Bruce Janae will provide an overview.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. I-8 University of New Orleans request for approval to allow for a student referendum for a new student experience fee. The University of New Orleans Student Government Association proposes a referendum for a student vote to create the student experience fee. The fee would initially be $300 for part-time students and $400 for full-time students. The fee would be allowed to increase by a percentage equal to percentage increases in tuition up to 5%. The student experience fee would replace the current athletics fee. The current athletics fee at 6 hours is $62.34, and at 12 hours is $100. The student experience fee would provide funding for creating new athletics programs and funding for student activities, retention, intramural programs, and diversity programs. The start date for assessing the fee has not yet been determined. The student experience fee would be assessed for the fall, spring, and summer semesters, and student elections anticipated to be held with the homecoming election in November 2022. Dr. Niccolls, Amber Lamel, SGA President, and Angelo Charles, SGA Vice President, are here to explain more and to answer any of the board's questions.
Item 1A has been, okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
You know, I
Student
almost
voice
missed you.
matters. Pardon?
I almost missed you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Student voice matters. And I frequently remind our students that if you want to affect change in your world, you need to use that voice. That's what this proposal does. It's what this request is. Our student government has voted on a proposal. They would like to take this now to the full student body for support or not. So I'm going to be quiet and introduce my student government president, Amber Lamel, and Angelo Charles, vice president. Turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Amber. As you said, I'm a senior marketing major here at UNO, and I'm the president of SGA.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking your time out with being here today. I am Angelo Charles. I am the student government vice president. I'm currently a political science major.
So first, we just wanted to say that, well, he kind of said some things, but we just want to say that the student experience fee is going to be extremely important for our student body. I feel like for them to have a choice in what they want to see change on our campus. Implementing something like this would be extremely important for our student engagement. Having, a football team or a women's soccer team, marching band, those types of things create a different atmosphere on a campus. And as of right now, the University of New Orleans is the only university that does not have a football team in the UL system, which is not necessarily a major issue. But I also think that if our students do want to be a part of that community, because we do get singled out a lot because we don't have a football team. And I also think that plays a big part in why some students don't come here. And which I don't understand why, because it's a great university. But I also think that outside of what it would do for our university, because this could go either way. This is what we're here to advocate for, is for our students to have a choice in the decision. We're not here to say, yes, we want a football team. Yes, we want a marching band. Yes, we want this to happen. We are here to advocate for our students being able to make a choice in that decision. Have anything to add?
Well, that was great. But yeah, thank you, Madam President. Yes, so we're here to advocate for student choice. As we are here today, everyone, we're here for students to advocate in some type of official capacity. So when you are making your decisions today, please keep in mind the choice of the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it?
I have a question.
Okay.
So this is a referendum to create a football team?
So ultimately, this is, now correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a referendum to increase the student experience fee. So it's not directly in regard to a football team, but it would include a football team. Our include women's soccer team, marching band. We're going to be implementing a couple of other things as well, but football is included on that list.
It would include women's soccer and women's golf as well to make sure that we're equitable.
And y'all think $300 a kid is going to cover a football team?
I could, yes, I do actually.
You do? Okay.
And maybe I'll invite our athletic director up. So let me go back. My first question when I was interviewed for this position 6 years ago was, when are we going to have football? Very first question. Just about every semester, at least once a year, I have a petition from students to add football and some of these other sports, marching band. Amber's not wrong. It has affected our enrollment and recruitment capabilities here, the types of students we are able to attract. About a year ago, Tim Duncan, my athletic director, and I engaged our foundation to do a full-scale feasibility study around what does this look like, what are the costs, what are the benefits. And yes, there are costs to this, and that the feasibility study outlines what all those additional sports would cost, including marching band. We would absorb some of that with ticket sales, concessions, and other things, but then this fee would cover the remainder. Some of the benefits: for every student that comes for these sports, they attract another 2 students, and that's well. Some other institutions. I'm going to talk a little more about the Feasibility Center.
Thank you, Dr. Nicholls, for giving me an opportunity to speak today, and thank you for being here on our campus board. So the student experience fee would cover about 60% of the needs for athletics. Cover all of it. We didn't think that was feasible. We thought the students to support it at the levels that we're asking for is more than fair. And then it's up to me to do my job to bring in the rest. And as Dr. Nicholls mentioned, the feasibility study by collegiate consultant analyzed, and it's called the ripple effect of recruiting student athletes, and 1.9 students come with every student athlete. So that was a big consideration in engaging in this topic. And it also studied 6 other urban serving institutions, and enrollment increased by 37% after 7 years. So there is a lift, not only in enrollment, but retention. The conversations that I have with our student athletes and students at large say that we don't have a ton of activities or engagement on our campus to help with retention. So while our enrollment has increased, our retention hasn't been where we need it. And what we're proposing here today, not just football and marching band, with the other diversity and retention and student activities and intramural fees, will go to help support that student experience to a great extent as well.
Just a comment. Yes, Mr. Romero. First, I'd like to thank the two of you for your leadership and vision and bringing this matter forward and putting the consideration forth between the board and the students. You know, we certainly are here to serve our students. I hope that you have the best in achieving your goals. You have some work cut out for you. The best way is always the hardest way. And we know it's tough in the college athletics. A lot of things have changed. Hopefully we'll get to talk about UNO football.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys as well. And also to take, to give y'all a moment to tell you how happy I am as an alumna. I always get that wrong. I think I'm an alumna. But so happy that you guys are considering this. And, as somebody who stayed very involved in the University of New Orleans, I do think it makes a tremendous difference. I know, my daughter was like, I want to go to a big SEC school, and that was it. She wants to go to football games. I tried several options, and it was like that was all she wanted. And I think that that's a big part of campus life. And, when you look at the Greek system, when you look at student life, that's a big piece of it. And to not have that, I do think hurts us a lot at the University of New Orleans. So I just want to let you guys know that I'm fully in support of what you're trying to do, and that if you need any help with anything during the referendum phase, I'm here for y'all.
Dr. Clark.
Yeah, again, thank you so much for presenting. My questions are more on the structure of the proposal and trying to understand, the current status and what this actually does. Certainly have great, support for athletic programs and understand that certainly from the enrollment management recruitment standpoint, get it totally for it. I'm curious here in terms of what this does. It references, at least in the executive summary that we have, that there is funding for student activities, retention, intramurals, and diversity programs. Are these currently separate fees, and is this combining? Is this on top of existing fees?
We currently have no fees for student diversity programs. Our retention programs, we do have a lot of student wraparound support. They're all funded internally. We use operating budget for that. So this is an attempt by the students to allocate additional dollars for additional activities that focus on those programs. I think they would evolve over time. We're going to have the student government input on what those programs look like. You want to add anything to that?
So again, I'm not clear. Are there currently fees that go to intramural programs?
There is a rec fee. Do you know what that is? I don't know.
There is a rec fee on our tuition, on our fee bill. However, most of the intramural sports that already exist, most of the time they either come to SGA for funding or they fund themselves.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and the rec fee was for the building itself, and that was built in 2000. So there wasn't any fee to support the programming, and that's what this would do.
Okay. to be paid in addition to this student experience?
Yes.
So all existing fees stay the same. This is not a combining of existing funding?
The athletic fee is the only one that changes. All the other programs don't have fees currently.
Okay, so
for a full-time student, currently, 12 or more hours, student pays $100 for the athletic fee. That student would now pay $400.
And all of the money goes to athletics?
No, that $300 increase would be spread, all $100 would be spread across those programs.
And do we know how that will be spread percentage-wise, or what the?
Not athletics is 90%. Marching band is 6%, and the other fees are 1% each.
Okay. All right. I'm also concerned about the inference, and maybe you can explain, and I may have this in my mind wrong, that the fee would be allowed to increase by a percentage equal to percent increases in tuition up to 5%. So this is every year upon in that way than it actually is.
Yes.
And what does that dollar amount, and how does that impact? That sounds, I'm curious from a board standpoint, if we have other universities who have that structure in their student fee circumstance where there's an automatic increase. I'm just not familiar.
Fees are structured that way. Typically, that is a cost of living as to go along with the rising cost of consumer price index, for instance. We have not had tuition increases, however, for the last 5 years. And as we're currently situated, I don't expect us to have tuition increases for the next 5 to 10 years. So it's only associated when we have a tuition increase. And again, that tuition increase requires a 2/3 vote from both houses of the legislature. So it's not an automatic by any stretch. What that would prevent is that if we have over the next 10 years, if the circumstances align that we must do tuition increases, this prevents them from having to go back and do another student referendum. Because ostensibly you're going to have environmental factors that create a scenario where a tuition increase is one, something that this board has endorsed, and two, that both houses of the legislature have endorsed.
Right, and I get that, and I'm fine I'm not fine on tuition increases. Don't quote me on that at all. I am fine with the procedure that allows for that to, in fact, occur. I'm not so sure a student referendum vote to a tuition increase that they have no say over as students.
May I?
Yeah, please.
So, in my opinion, it's capped at a 5% increase. Is that what I understood? And knowing the legislature, that's a very conservative move because they're not going to, I don't foresee a ton of tuition increases making their way through there. So I think as a mechanism to allow it to increase at all with inflation, that's probably a pretty conservative method to use.
And increases cannot be implemented on these campuses without a vote of this board following a 2/3 vote of both houses and signature of the governor.
Yeah, I'm just
number of safeguards.
With this notion of tying an automatic increase to student fees to anything. Nicholls may have it, and I didn't realize, I'm not aware. I do, and not just have an automatic or legislative or someone else determine that it is there. And it's just counterintuitive to me. That just struck me.
Except that that's part of their decision-making process on the referendum. Right. So they're making that decision now, right? And as long as that is adequately communicated to students, that they're saying, when you vote in favor of this referendum, you are tying this fee to potential increases in tuition.
Please.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to make it clear that I have the same concern because I want to, again, make it clear I'm not here to advocate for this team or for a football team or for a marching band. What I want to make the choice. So whenever this was brought to us and we started working on it, that was one of our major concerns too, because students don't read their emails sometimes. Let's just be honest. Students don't read emails. They don't read flyers. So our concern was we want to make sure that the information is going to be transferred to them effectively and not, hey, you're going to get a football team, vote yes. That's I just want to make it clear to you that I won't actually be here, but this is a new president next year. So he will be here making sure that we communicate to students that this is not, please read this before you say something. Tabling, posters, things like that are going to be really important because that is a big concern. And I'm sure, especially because UNO is most known for its affordability, which is another reason why I'm here. So I'm sure a lot of students won't want to see that dynamic change. So the thing is, if students don't want this, this won't happen. And that's the most important thing for us, at least.
I really appreciate your sincerity and your outlook. I really, really do. Let me ask this. When it comes to voting at UNO, how is that for student voting? How is that done? Is that electronic? Is that online? Does everybody have an opportunity to do it? And can you give me a sense of the percentage of the number of students who usually participate in that vote?
Yes. So most of our votes, particularly the homecoming vote and the SGA elections, they go through email. They are sent to all currently enrolled students and graduate students, and we usually get about 30% participation rate.
Okay. Very helpful.
So the existing athletic fee, if this referendum passes, goes away and it's replaced by this new fee that has other services also included, correct?
Correct.
Look, we did this last board meeting. 2 other universities came to us, and I think we should be consistent. I mean, all of you mentioned student choice. I think that's what it's primarily about for me. It's also not a given. So even if you get a positive vote today, you've got some work to do. You're a poli-sci major, so do luck with that. You're about to learn the hard way.
Thank you.
Entertaining.
No, second.
One of them.
We have a motion and a second. But are there any
questions?
Yeah, one more question. Just to go back to the student choice, the way you're mentioning it, it's the students are having the choice as to whether or not to approve the fee. But what participation did students have in determining how the money would be divided? So the 90% to athletics, the 6% to what was it?
Marching band.
Marching band, and the 1% to the other. Were students involved in that decision making?
To be quite honest, I don't believe so. I think it was more so based off of the feasibility study that they. To be honest, the numbers itself was about numbers and finance, not necessarily what would be best. Not best, but what students wanted. Because as a student, I'll be quite honest, I would just be like, I wouldn't know what to even say about that.
Yeah, it was a proposal. Once we started these discussions, it was a proposal from the consultant in our feasibility study that this is what this one option for would look like. I think we're open to amending that or negotiating some changes to that if need be. But it was a proposal that we put forward.
I just want some clarification on the choice, the choice part. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I made the motion, but maybe I should defer to Ms. Stokes since she's the alum of the university. So if you want to substitute and move.
Thank you.
Very
We've had a full discussion of the issue, and I will accept the motion and a second to approve the item.
I will make a motion to approve this student fee.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We also have a second. Are there any objections? Without objection, the motion passes.
May I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
I didn't object, and the reason I didn't object, quite frankly, was the sincerity again with which you approached this. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that you've given, the honesty that you gave, the fact that you are reflecting and, quite frankly, I think provide an opportunity for students to really think through the issue. And again, if the students understand that, think through it and support it, I'm 100% behind you. I just hope that everybody will be reflective. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move on to item one, I-9. Mr. Janet will.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Our last item is discussion item I-9. It's Universal Louisiana System, our standard report on internal and external audit activity for the period from my last board meeting of February 14th to April 17th. Earlier this week, I emailed each of you a listing of our internal and external audits reports at the campuses. Also including that are currently in progress, and also a follow-up timetable to ensure that recommendations made in prior reports are implemented. This is a report only, and no action by the board is necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Gannett. That concludes the business of the Finance Committee. I yield the chair back over to the Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. At this time, we'll move to Personnel Committee. Ms. Donahoe will now chair that Personnel Committee and give her report.
Thank you, Chair Pro Tem. We have 3 items on the Personnel Committee agenda today that are being presented under the consent agenda. Ms. Keisha Neal will provide an overview of today's item. Ms. Neal?
Thank you, Mrs. Donahoe. Good morning, Chair Pierre, Dr. Henderson, and board members. Item 1 is McNeese State University's request for approval to appoint Ms. Mona White as Vice President for Business Affairs effective April 1st, 2022. Item J2 is McNeese State University's request for approval to continue the appointment of Ms. Virginia Ann Warner as Interim Dean for the College of Nursing effective January 4th, 2022. Item J3 is University of New Orleans request for approval to appoint Ms. Joanne N. Terranova as Interim Vice President for Business Affairs effective March 24th, 2022. And this concludes the items to be considered today, Mrs. Donahoe.
Thank you very much. These agenda items have been reviewed by the staff and are recommended for approval. Of course, if any member has a question of Ms. Neal at this time, please ask. Are there any comments from the public? If not, I'd entertain a motion that these 3 be approved.
Move approval.
So moved by Mr. Robinson. A second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Romero. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Also, Dr. Niccolò would like to introduce one of our new faculty members.
Well, thank you for that approval. It's a pleasure to introduce Joanne Terranova. Joanne is our new interim vice president for business affairs, but Joanne is not new to UNO. She's been here for 31 years in a variety of positions, most recently as my comptroller. So she's elevated to this position in an interim capacity. She's also a UNO alum with an MBA from here and is a CPA. Joanne?
It's truly an honor and a pleasure to be here and to serve in this capacity as the interim vice president for business affairs and CFO. In the many years that I've been here at UNO, it's always been my top priority to have the financial health of the university first at hand. So I just want to thank everybody for having the confidence in me, especially Dr. Niccolò, to assume this role.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, that concludes the business of the Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Supervisor Donahoe. At this time, we'll move to the Legislation Committee. Mr. Stevens, would you please give that report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The regular session of Louisiana Legislature continues in Baton Rouge. The budget is on the House floor today, so it's very exciting times. Kenny Geisman is here to provide a brief overview of what to expect in this session.
We had a really good day. I hope y'all enjoyed breakfast with the governor. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I know you had to twist his arm a little bit to let him let him open up his home to us. And then the weather came, and that was a very 150 folks from our campuses huddled under an awning, looking out on stormy weather. But it cleared, and it really was a great event. The space was wonderful. Nicholls and UNO did an incredible job with the food. And we've had an overwhelmingly positive response from our campuses, which is really exciting. We had probably more legislative interaction than we've had in previous years, even when we were in front of the Capitol. But I really appreciate all of you coming out. I appreciate your engagement with our degree programs. And, I think it means a lot to our institutions and the faculty and the students who come out. So thank you so much. We also enjoyed recognition on both floors for the R.F. Lewis Scholars, as well as for the day as a whole. So it was just a really good day, and thank y'all so much for sacrificing your time for that. And it goes a long way. We've been at the legislature. We're halfway through session. We've been there a lot of walks from Claiborne to the Capitol, and there's an overwhelming positivity around our institutions and our system, a lot of enthusiasm from members. And so it's really a fun time to be in this role, because not only are our members excited about our institutions, but there's money. And so as Mr. Stevens said, HB1 is on the House floor today. I just checked. They haven't quite started business. They're still doing resolutions and such, but we still expect to have one of the most significant investments in our work in many, many years. So it's very exciting. HB2, the House construction budget, has been making way through the process. And we're looking extremely good in that bill as well, with a lot of important projects for our institutions receiving priority and receiving funding, significant investment in our institutions' infrastructure. So we also have a lot of other bills we're watching, of course, which I kind of went over, but they weren't all filed at that point. So I'll give a couple highlights. There's several retirement bills for teachers, but it also has some implication for some of our areas of faculty where we need to re-engage some of our former faculty, especially in nursing. There's several teacher ed bills also geared toward increasing the population of teachers in our states, and that is significant to us because, of course, we train teachers. There's a bill today in Senate Ed for eliminating graduate student fees for those graduate students who are teaching assistants, research assistants, et cetera. We are working at the urge of some folks at Nicholls to make an opportunity for those who need to go on maternity leave but may not have the leave necessary to be able to access crisis leave pools on their campuses. And so we're working with Representative Freeman on that. We're, of course, working with Senator Milligan on a Homeland Security bill to protect our research. And we had a hunger-free campus bill go through this week to the Board of Regents to be able to have a designation to create hunger-free campuses. Our institutions do a really good job. They all have food pantries. They all have other innovative ways they're making sure hunger doesn't exist on our campuses. But of course, we welcome any help we can get there. There are some vaccine bills that are going to be making it through next week that we're watching closely. And then there is a Senate concurrent resolution on tenure that will be in Senate Ed next week that will be there. And I think Dr. Henderson, I don't know if you want to talk about that now or.
Mr. Chair, if I could, there is a resolution that's been offered to create a task force to study tenure in public post-secondary education. That was going to be on the schedule for today. The author and the chair of the committee worked with us to ensure that it would be on the agenda next week so that we will be able to be at the table and have a conversation. I know the author well. Many of you may have met him, Senator Kathy, during the president's search at ULM. He was heavily engaged in that, as most legislators are in their home institutions. This particular piece of legislation has 7 whereas clauses in the resolution. The first 5 are one of the strongest endorsements of indeterminate tenure I've ever seen, maybe since 1940 when AAUP first passed the first principles of academic freedom and tenure, and of course added to that 1970 with interpretive comments. We will be heavily engaged as this instrument moves through the process. We will be talking about how fundamental academic freedom and tenure is, if you want to think of them as a singular term, because they are inextricably linked to our work, to our mission. They have been since the beginnings of the academy. We will make those points at every opportunity. If the bill makes its way through and the task force is created, I fully expect that the final product from that task force will be an unequivocal reaffirmation of the vital importance of academic freedom in advancing our people and our mission and our state. I want our faculty to understand that they are so deeply appreciated for the work they do every single day, especially now as we're but 2 years since faculty led one of the greatest responses to an unpredictable, tumultuous environment that we have ever seen in any endeavor. It was faculty that did that. It was faculty that worked through 8 years of the largest disinvestment in higher education the country has seen. Faculty should not view this as an attack on faculty, on academic freedom, or on tenure. We'll ensure that that message is carried forward, and we'll work very closely with all of our legislators and seize this as an opportunity to celebrate faculty that are essential to our mission. And so, if you'll forgive me for the soapbox, I just want to make sure that that message was received in an unequivocal way.
You're preaching to the choir. I think they would let you keep going if you'd like.
Dr. Henderson, I do have a question. Who will determine the persons that will be on this task force?
Thank you, Supervisor Donahoe. It's actually listed in the bill. You will have representation from each system. And Supervisor Stokes may actually have the bill in front of her, it appears.
Yeah, I'm actually counting the people on the task force, and I was coming out with more legislators than people from the systems. Or is there? I would negotiate to try to make that more even.
If necessary, we can make that. But I'll be honest. We've seen attacks. We've seen attacks on tenure across the country. We've seen they're rooted in what I think is a false narrative that's playing out around the country. I have not seen an attack on tenure so strongly endorse tenure in the first 5 clauses of that piece of legislation. In fact, I think we could take those first 5 clauses, print them out, and have them in every faculty senate office across the state. Now, as you know, that can be, from a Machiavellian perspective, a great way to pass a piece of legislation. And so your suggestion is well taken, and we'll work with the author and the chairs of on both sides to try to make that happen.
I would even possibly look at suggesting a few professors that might have a lot of name recognition, that they've become very distinguished professors in our system, or with other schools in Louisiana too, to maybe let a few of them kind of give their perspectives. I would just ask him to try to increase, not a big indictment. And I agree with you that the whereas clauses are largely positive, but against tenure. But I would just try to make sure you got some balance
for that. And there are a number of ways that faculty can have their name widely known.
Yeah, no. So I mean,
sometimes through scholarship, and research, and that's a great thing to have some of those voices at the table. That's
accomplished, respected is where I was going with widely known. Yeah, that could be a problem.
At Twitter.
Yeah, that's Twitter. And
That's awesome.
the last thing I had is just housekeeping. If you didn't receive your PAR guide on your system day at the Capitol, come see me. I have them for you. And that's all I have.
Members, this is a report only, no action required by the board. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Do we have any other business, Ms. Geisman? If not, that concludes the business of the Legislation Committee. Madam Chair, turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Stevens. And that concludes all of our committee reports. At this time, Dr. Henderson, would you please give us your report? Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, you were emailed copies of the personnel actions and the summer pay plans for review. Our staff has reviewed all of these requests and recommends approval. Madam Chair, we would need a motion and a second to approve those.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Clark. Second. Second by Supervisor Williams. Any questions? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that matter stands approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a number of just reports on some events that have taken place. Kami already mentioned ULS Day at the Capitol. I want to thank her and the entire UL system staff who make that happen behind the scenes. Every time I looked across the yard at the Pentagon Barracks, I saw Caitlin or Ann carrying stacks of chairs or Keisha carrying an ice chest. It was, and that can go unseen, but that's absolutely important. I didn't carry anything but my umbrella. So I will work on that for the next time. Thank you, Kim. But last March, we went to God's country, the city of Natchitoches, for the 5th annual For Our Future conference. We welcomed the largest number of registrants in the history of this events. We welcomed the largest number of registrants in the event's history to 36 sessions strategizing around 3 tracks: core and core performance. Conference, we unveiled our system's core competencies, and it's appropriate that we're on the campus of University of New Orleans, where Dr. Kim Martin Long, led a 3-year effort from faculty and administrators from across the state to develop a document around core competencies, core capabilities that is going to drive a great deal of our work for the foreseeable future. I want to thank Dr. Marcus Jones and Northwestern State for their hospitality. I don't know if there will be purple dye available for anything in the near future because it was all used materials. They certainly made their presence there. Of course, the city of Natchitoches for the hospitality, as always. And next year, we look forward to having the conference in a restored, rejuvenated Lake Charles and at McNeese State. So, Dr. Burkell, thank you for agreeing to that, if you did. The annual Academic Summit was held on April 7th and 8th. And as you know, the Academic Summit highlights the work of our students in areas of visual and performing arts, service learning, and undergraduate research. The presentations this year were outstanding. Some of the performing arts and visual arts performances were remarkable. And some were even accessible to my age people. Others were just a showcase of some wonderful creativity. The presentations, they were again, the research was mind-blowing. This year's summit focused on professional and academic mentoring efforts. I want to appreciate the faculty who provided guidance to the participants. And this program is always under the leadership of Dr. Erica Calais. The UL System's Undergraduate Research and Service Learning Council has delivered an exceptional summit. Erica, thank you for your leadership. All of you have a pennant at your seats. This pennant was designed by students and faculty at UL Lafayette and was part of our contest associated with the Academic Summit. All of our participants received a pennant as a keepsake and a token of our appreciation. We will move back to an in-person summit next year, again at Northwestern State. In late March, we had the 2nd annual 100 Black Men Virtual College Fair. The fair was well attended. We had over 100 participants from the greater Baton Rouge area. Students were able to learn more about our UL system institutions, and several high-achieving students were awarded scholarships. All of our institutions participated in it. I want to thank our partner that is tied to us at the hip, 100 Black Men of Greater Baton Rouge, for their continued partnership. Management and Leadership Institute, that's a Q. The 5th cohort of the Management and Leadership Institute completed their campus visits last week. Under the direction of Dr. Caprice Ayub, each cohort demonstrates substantial personal growth while benefiting from relationships formed with their class. At this time, I would like Dr. Ayub to share an update on Management Leadership Institute, including the recent re-engagement held in Natchitoches. Dr. Ayub, welcome.
Thank you, and good morning. When we completed the first year of our Management Leadership Institute, Dr. Henderson realized we would need to establish an additional initiative to continue promoting opportunities for professional growth, development, and connection among participants. And this resulted in the inception of re-engagement. As the years have passed, and especially with 2 of them being marred by COVID, it seemed that we also needed to reconnect our MNLI alumni among each other, even at their own campuses. At about that time, one of our presidents challenged me to help our classes to think more strategically, beyond being great technicians in their roles, but to actually look further ahead and to understand how their work and decisions impact both student success and university growth. From there, our pre-conference MNLI re-engagement this year became a strategic doing workshop facilitated by Dr. Ed Morrison. Our presidents and members of their leadership teams joined their university's participants from all 5 MNLI classes, and these 98 leaders worked within 9 university-based teams to apply Dr. Morrison's innovative collaborative model to either design or to enhance an economic partnership. With funding from the Kauffman Foundation, Dr. Morrison is currently scheduling a series of follow-up meetings over the next 4 months for these leadership teams to continue progressing on their economic development initiative or any other collaborative endeavor. It seems impossible that our presidents are already in the process of submitting nominations for the 6th class of our MNLI. Our 5th class had their final university meeting at McNeese last week. Since it has become a competitive rite of passage of sorts, they're still working on their group projects and looking forward to presenting to you and their presidents at our June board meeting. For those who aren't yet familiar with our Management and Leadership Institute, it was an element of Dr. Henderson's vision for our system when he became president, to prepare our future leaders for the roles their universities would soon call on them to fill, and to invest in growing our own talent and bench. It was also intended to promote his notion of systemness, and in both regards, it's been quite successful. There are so many layers to the program, and while the requirements they meet over the course of the year are demanding and rigorous, what the success really turns on first is the quality of talent and character of the nominees year after year. I'd like to thank our presidents for the time and resources they've invested, from the nomination process to sharing their leadership experiences with classes, to the work their teams do to ensure that our 3-day meetings showcase their campus's beauty and personality, and to provide great learning environments, and especially for their unwavering support. Another proud aspect of the quality programming we have been able to offer is that we do it almost entirely on a foundation that is built with internal talent. Dr. Henderson is very engaged throughout each year. My colleagues from our system office always show up strong. The untold assets who are the leaders scattered throughout our 9 universities that we call upon, who consistently share generously, both of their time and expertise, and a handful of alumni and community leaders who are closely aligned with our work. These are the professionals who lead the entire process. And all in all, I believe this is but another example that reflects both our potential and our promise. And I continue to appreciate the opportunity to serve in this role.
Caprice, thank you. And let me add a thank you and just a testament about the impact of having Caprice IU run this program. It's almost sickening at the end of the 9 months to go. I usually go to the last meeting to do my leadership challenge or maybe do a book conversation. And I have to listen to the accolades they pour on her. And somehow she manages to rise above that. And it seems to be an impetus for her just to go to the next level. She has a network now of more than 100 graduates across the state that still look to her for counsel, for feedback, for mentorship. And if there was a person designed to lead a program like this, it's Caprice. And I appreciate you doing that. I also appreciate you entertaining folks. We have a great curriculum of some leadership and management standards, and then some new entrees into that literature, if you will. And then I always get to choose a couple of books. This year, I'm not sure how well it worked. We chose Walden by Henry David Thoreau, which I think is a leadership treatise in its own right. I may be the only one after they read it and we discussed it. We also just finished A Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin, that looked at the Lincoln administration and how he brought those that were the most antagonistic to him in the nomination process and made him a part of his cabinet. I think the only complaint about that book was its 800-page length. And so if you read if you get our curricular sheet, our syllabus, and you read it the day before, you're going to be in a world of hurt. This is a rigorous program that's developing the next generation of leaders. And Caprice, again, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
So we are now gearing up for our second annual Black Male Summit. So please save the dates, June 15th and 16th. It will be at the University of Louisiana in Monroe. So Dr. Berry, I hope you knew that. Last year's inaugural event provided an environment to not only have some courageous conversations, but also a vision for improving the Black male experience for our faculty, staff, and students. It also provided a platform to introduce our first cohort of Reginald F. Lewis scholars, a cohort that continues to exceed any reasonable expectation under the leadership of Dr. Claire Norris. This year, we will pin our second cohort of Reginald F. Lewis scholars, and we may have a special guest to help us do that. Notorious for letting the cat out of the bag, I've been told not to, but that will be an extraordinary event. I hope all of you can make it, and something I will look forward to as well. But Dr. Norris, thank you for your leadership. I do have quickly a couple of staff recognitions. You heard me mention when I introduced Erica Calais and thanked her for her work with Academic Summit. I did not say future Dr. Erica Calais. I said Dr. Erica Calais. Dr. Calais and Dr. Sandra Green both successfully defended their dissertations, and I want to congratulate them for being examples of lifelong learning. They both say their favorite class was in their first semester, and Doctorate of Education. They created this Doctorate of Education program about 6 years ago. The first cohort started 5 years ago, and it is producing leaders across the community and technical college system, and certainly within our system. And thank them for allowing me to participate in it as well. One other staff recognition, and I emailed this to you, but I wanted to just acknowledge it publicly. The august Department of Public Administration at Louisiana State University recognizes an outstanding alum year, and this year they chose an alumna to honor. And of course, I'm talking about our provost and my partner, Dr. Janine Kahn. She is the 2022 Alumna of the Year from the Department of Public Administration, and I want to congratulate her publicly. That watches Dr. Kahn in public understands that if you watch her in the daily work in our office, you get it at a very deep level. She is integral to every element of success we've enjoyed. Certainly the last 5 years, and certainly the last 6 years, she's been in that role. So Janine, thank you very much for that. And now, Madam Chair, I need to shift and would like to provide the board an update on University of Louisiana system versus AmerisourceBergen. For the public, that is the opioid litigation that continues. To do that, Madam Chair, we will need to go into executive session. And to go into executive session, we would need a motion in a second to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I think something first
Sure.
before we make that motion. The Board of Supervisors for the University of Louisiana
So
system.
we have to do the vote first, and then we can read that.
I'm
No,
sorry.
that's okay.
Your motion is in order, Mr. Stevens. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we go into executive session. Is there any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now, I'll read my part.
Well, see, we have doing a motion in a second twice. So
Got you.
what we'll have to do is read this, and then we'll do a roll call.
A
How
roll
about that?
call vote for that. Got you. The Board of Supervisors for the University of Louisiana system may meet in executive session to discuss litigation matters under the provisions of Louisiana Revised Statutes 42:16. While in executive session, the board may not make any motions or take any votes. So now may I have a motion? Okay,
So we got the motion in second.
we do have the motion in second. I'm sorry. Carol, can you do the roll call vote for that motion?
Yes. Dr. Jimmy Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Steve Davison,
Yes.
Ms. Lola Donahoe.
Yes.
Ms. Joe Leatherman,
Yes.
Mr. Dan Peterson,
Yes.
Ms. Elizabeth Pierre,
Yes.
Mr. Virgil Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Mark Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Brad Stevens,
Yes.
Ms. Julie Stokes,
Yes.
Ms. L'Oreal Williams.
Okay, yes.
It's unanimous.
And before we go into executive session, Mr. Romero would like to recognize.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly would tell you, it's oftentimes we have good participation in students and alumni who join our meetings, and it's great to see a couple of folks here. I'd like to recognize Charlie Blanchard. He's a student in the Marine Architecture program here. And I would also like to give special recognition to a great friend, an alum of this university, and a gentleman who I think played a pivotal role as we progressed when Dr. Nicholls was first installed here. That's Mr. Antonio Torres. He will soon be a Juris Doctorate. So,
Okay.
Antonio, thank you so much. It's great to see you today.
I'm a board member. All right, we'll now retire to executive session.
Yes, ma'am. And members, the executive session is downstairs in the conference room, and we'll have folks there to point you in the right direction.
Taking over. Budget, well, they just finished. That's quick. Yeah.
Yeah, I asked questions about it.
It's so quick, I had to post it. It was ready 2 seconds ago.
Okay.
Where we going?
Executive session now.
Oh.
How are you, Bert?
Old man.
Yeah, I was kind of interested in that. I know there's a lot of paths.
Well, it comes back to you when you get a lot older because you're not as active and your muscles and your tendons and the whole mechanism tighten up. You need the flexibility. Oh, I know. If you're not active as you used to be, sometimes you just go through the same thing.
I hear you. I take 15 to 20 minutes every morning before I get out of bed, and I do stretching exercise. I'm at that point too. I had my 71st this weekend.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
71st.
Yeah.
But I am hitting 75.
There you go.